All right, so we might as well get started. We're doing cemetery, highway, and library this evening.
Recycling as well, please.
Oh, cemetery and recycling, yes, thank you. And we're going to start with cemetery and recycling. Well, there's a good question. It's line 163 on page 3.
Oh, I'm there.
You actually have page numbers. That's good.
Fancy.
Mark is a cemetery sexton as well. If you had questions, he might be able to answer some of those.
Steve.
Trustee, sorry.
Yep,
Yes,
that's the sexton.
sorry. Yeah, that too.
He knows what's going on.
Oh, good.
Some days.
He's up by $1,000, right? No, 5,000.
Down 1,000.
5,000.
I'm seeing up.
I'm seeing.
I'm seeing up 7,000 plus. Wrong.
I'm seeing some missing.
73,311 is this year's budget.
And the recommendation here is, oh, I should be the town manager recommendation. That's still up $6,000.
The priority, Mr. Chairman, is we need to get some tree work done in all the cemeteries. We have some liabilities, that dead limbs that come crashing down and hit gravestones and those kinds of things, not to mention if anybody were around. The extra money that's in there, and over time, that should straighten itself out over the next few years or so. We should get all of our needs done, and then that'll drop back. Jim has put together a nice program. We've got the new mower, so I think the cemeteries are looking very, very good. We just need to deal with tree issues.
And that encompasses all of the cemeteries. That's
Yes,
what we're
all
saying.
of them. Yep.
Yep.
We did get the barbed wire out of the cemetery down by the Italian farmhouse. That was a liability, so we're poking along, trying to get them all up to where they should be.
So the cemetery down by the Italian farmhouse, didn't that need like work? Or besides the barbed wire apparently? Like either on, wasn't something was sloughing off or,
I don't believe there's anything down.
okay.
We had a
Work
wall fall
done.
over on,
Texas Hill Road.
Interview, is that Interview? On Dick Brown Road?
Yep.
That one, we had a wall fall over there.
Oh, okay.
This winter, and we fixed that this summer. A granite curb wall fell over. The highway department came over and we fixed it.
Do you go out to Pike Hill a lot? Or have you been out to that one out in Pike Hill? Okay. There's one municipal, cemetery out on Pike Hill.
Yeah, where is that? I'm drawing a blank.
So I actually tried to find it one time and I couldn't, but it was
We
like,
might not maintain that one.
well, it had been maintained in the past.
We
but-
had, I think we do 8 now.
Oh, I thought there was 13.
No, we went to all of them, not this past summer, the summer before. I think we hit all of them. Is that the single one up off of Texas Hill?
Well, it's on Pike Hill Road, I believe.
All right.
There's and it's on basically a Class 6 road.
All right. I'm not sure that we got there. I don't know, I don't remember.
I don't think we maintain that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is a very small one off of Texas Hill Road that we went up and is ours.
Yeah. Near,
It's up on the left as you
near the falls there. Of
Yes. Yeah.
The blanks.
Yeah.
In terms of that tree work, is that something that our staff is doing, or we outsource
We're
that?
gonna have to outsource
No,
it. They
it's-
need bucket trucks.
Yeah. It's
Needs bucket truck, like, it's not the sort of thing that
It's
can
not-
be,
it's not- No,
we're either taking a tree down, which is pretty hard
it's
to
not
do.
not someone who can do it.
No,
climb
I
and
wouldn't take
ropes
the
and-
liability. No. And some of the limbs that we want to get are up, you would need a bucket truck and really know what you're doing.
I just asked, I had a guy take 13 trees down around my house this past year, and he did it all with ropes and
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
did a fantastic job. I didn't know if that saves us, because bucket truck's expensive.
Well, we're not renting a crane, is where the real money is, the truck.
Yeah, the cranes are
sometimes-
really expensive, yeah.
So,
So is this something we would put out to bid?
Yes.
yes.
So it might not be 6,000.
Oh, it may not.
10.
Yeah, it just
Actually
depends
10.
on what we spec when we're ready to go.
Just cleaning up the big pines at Riverside was 15 grand last year. That was just for one side of the cemetery. That was
Yeah.
limbing them and taking 2 down. And I see a bunch of limbs that just fell again on that side after that heavy wet snow. So that's just on that one side at Riverside was 15 grand.
It's big trees.
So
The big trees.
the plan, Jim, is to get a scope of work for all of the
All of them.
cemeteries.
And do the hazard ones first.
Yep, but get a scope of work, and then we can put that out to bid, or put that out as a request for proposal and see what we get back in.
Okay.
And Zach, if we can get that information from you as well.
I'll definitely give you that guy's card. He's young and he loves it.
Oh, that's Coulter,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Coulter Berry.
Coulter Berry, yeah. Never seen anybody who likes climbing trees like that guy does.
I knew him when he was very little, and he's always been like that.
Not surprising. Any other questions about cemetery? All right, well, let's switch to recycling.
Recycling's on page 9, line 492.
And we went through this budget, Zach, with Jim in the budget committee. The biggest increases are due to hauling fees, and that's what pretty much all of the increases on that second page result in. What's that?
The salaries for the additional full-time.
Right, and
Is there an additional position here?
There's definitely a
We
salary
have an
difference.
individual who is proposed to come back within this position, which was the manager before. So right now, we have proposed enough funding for the manager, the foreman, a full-time, and then a part-time. Two part-timers, right? Total of 5.
Yeah, there was, when I first started, there was 4 full and a part.
Right.
And so there was 4, what is there now?
There's
2
2.
fulls and a part.
2 full, 1 part-time, and we have
We have 1
1 full-time who's coming back.
we have one full-time opening,
Opening that we're searching for.
and we have the additional position, which we've discussed previously.
But it's gonna remain in the recycling budget.
That's correct.
For now, yep.
But that's why we're seeing this extra
Salary. Yep.
salary in
Correct.
here.
Eventually that'll move somewhere else.
We don't know yet.
That's our hope, Ted.
So new, this is basically returning salary, and effectively from a budget perspective, the proposal is that position that we didn't have to pay for last year comes back. We pay for it this year. We're not offsetting by letting someone else go or anything like that. It's
Correct.
a net increase.
And then the increase in hauling and trucking fees.
And then hauling and trucking, yeah.
That's correct, right, Jim? The
Yeah,
hauling.
right now, we're averaging about $4,500 a month to truck it. So I'm at 48% left for the rest of the year.
And by doing that, we're keeping within the recommendations and guidelines from Department of
Yes.
Environmental Services to make
We're not
sure
supposed to sit,
we're not in violation.
stockpile stuff.
I may have suggested that in the past, just leave it there, move it around with a skid steer every once in a while, but
Nah, that doesn't go very well anymore.
I won't see this again.
No, you won't, not from me.
So that's about 32,000? The 9, the 10, the 6, and the 7? Those effectively the hauling fees we're
Yeah,
talking
about 30,000, give or take.
And this budget line, once you consider the insurance and the dental that's been moved out, effectively, the recycling line is up about 86,000.
Correct.
Any other questions for Jim Recycling?
Nope, it's pretty straightforward.
And he does not have anything in capital for either of those departments this year. So just so you-
Okay. Well, easy enough then, I think. Oh, there's also other sanitation, but that's not
Those are dues to Pemmy.
dues to Pemmy Baker. We talked about that last time, I think.
For household hazardous waste
Yeah,
day is
and
one
like
of-
our light bulb collection.
Okay. All right. I think we're good with Jim. Hang out
Right.
where you can go.
Run.
Up to you.
I'm running back home.
I'm gonna hang out down there.
Yeah.
All right, I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
Have a good
Thanks,
one.
Jim.
Next up, highway.
Sue, you might want to move over 2 seats. Then you don't have to keep moving.
I started there, Matt, that's my code on here.
It's gonna be on page 8,
Oh, I was looking the other way through.
420. All right, well, looks like overall the line is up about 33,000. Roughly. What's the summary here?
What do you mean?
So
What's changed?
the 3% increase, as we've discussed with all the other departments. Other things that are large in this is road maintenance and the culverts. We still have a number of culverts to replace. A lot of it based on last year's storm, and Joe, remind me how many culverts we replaced this year?
We did 15.
We've got an additional
We can do at least 15 more. I mean,
More.
It's never ending.
Yeah.
It's just,
So if we did 15 this year, we're going to do 15 next year, that wouldn't explain any sort of increase.
I'm sorry, Zach.
Said if we did 15 this year and we're going to do 15 next year, that's not an increase.
That the cost of
well,
materials is
the
Okay, because of material costs.
the price of pipe, like, I wouldn't say it doubled, but it was pretty close. It was astronomical, the amount that black plastic pipe went up.
Okay.
The other thing was on the building maintenance and repairs. Joe, you want to talk a little bit about that increase of the 12,000?
Yeah, so we've just had a lot more different things come out of that budget than it used to. just an overall, it just keeps going up, and, trying to think, there's a couple different things that come out of that. But,
Which line item are we talking about right now?
What's that, Zach?
Which line item are we talking about right now?
We are talking about the 439.
Okay.
The other large increases, as we saw this year when we approved the road maintenance, sand and gravel, an additional $10,000 there based on the pricing that we saw in that purchase order. And with regards to the sidewalks, an additional $10,000 there to be able to repair and maintain additional sidewalks this year to keep in touch with the infrastructure of the road paving and the sidewalks rebuild.
yeah, we did, basically, we did, 2 sidewalks, and it was over $60,000, so $30,000 isn't gonna go very far. We're looking at maybe 1 sidewalk at best, depending on whether we fix the curbing or not.
The other thing with Joe's budget for the capital improvement is we removed the blower. And I've had a conversation with Joe about that, and we definitely can get by without replacing that this year.
We definitely can get by.
Yes.
Yep.
Good. Well, before we move to capital, any other questions about the main budget? Looks like roughly this is 2%-ish of an increase. That feels to me pretty
Based
in
on
line.
The inflation and the cost of,
Inflation and cost of materials, and you've got 3% on wages, like 2% feels pretty good.
I mean, we did go through this line by line with, Ann and I went through with Steve and Joe, and then we met with Joe, the budget committee met with Joe down at the highway garage and went through, and the only change that we made during that meeting was regards to the sand and gravel, of increasing that because of what we saw with the inflation of course when we signed that purchase order a few weeks ago.
I did notice that we decreased the engineering budget. Is that,
We shouldn't have.
We didn't decrease the engineering, we actually had an encumbrance for this year, Zach. So that is the same amount, it's just that the encumbrances are included in this year's budget.
okay.
They're taken out of the bottom
Okay.
line, but they
So we
are-
don't have to raise the extra 30,000. We've got it encumbered.
Right, this year, yeah.
We covered it into this line.
So we would expect likely next year that 30 will go back to 60.
Yes.
Okay. That's all my questions on the main budget.
You did ask about the street lighting, which is, not street lighting, what did you ask? Trees, care of trees, which is on page 12.
You wanted more information on that with regards to the increase in that
Plan
line?
was, Yep.
That's line 669. And Joe, the question is, why did we increase that line?
Well, not only does the highway use it, but like cemetery seems to use it, and I'm not sure, but maybe, the recycling has used it also. But we tend to have a lot of trees at certain times, depending on the projects, that need to come down. I know there's three big oaks on New Hebron that are gonna come down. And I've got 2 more in town that we're looking at, so we've already got a list that probably exceeds what you have on that paper already, so that's not including having the other departments take out of that fund.
Did you mention Old Hebron too? There's a tree on Old Hebron that's about ready to break some wires, and also that, near Texas Hill at the junction there. There are two trees that are leaning on the wires.
Well, the ones leaning on the wires, we've contacted co-op.
Yeah,
because
okay.
They're not in a hurry, I guess.
Surprised the power didn't go out, but,
They'll lay them on the ground. We won't touch them.
yeah. Okay.
It's actually convenient when the tree touches the
That's
line, and
right.
we don't have to pay for it.
To grow that
You already
way.
sent us a bill, right?
Anything else in main budget before we go into anything capital? All right, capital.
Mr. Chairman, just.
Yes, please.
This relates to it. On the blower, should we put any money into maintenance to get it through the year? I mean, should there
Joe
be-
has money in the maintenance
We're
to
all
get it
set?
through. And
We're all
right
set?
now,
Yeah, we just put a lot of money into it over the last year here,
Okay.
so
All right,
that's one of the reasons why we're gonna try to buy some more time.
okay, great. All set.
Good catch.
So the highway department's on page 3 of your capital improvement plan.
Looks like we have a replacement plow truck.
Yep,
Yep,
one of them.
that's an outright purchase, that's not a lease, so that's why that money's in there now.
Okay.
So we also we have so there's 4 sander trucks that we use, 1 ton. And one of them we have to delete as far as we can drive it, but we can't plow with it anymore. The frame on it's been welded twice, and it won't take another, it's a waste of money to try to weld it again. So we're gonna use it as a truck, just to do other services besides plowing. And if we can incorporate it into one of the ones that we trade in, works out, we'll do that.
We also have another garage door here.
Yep.
Why is there a 0 for the sweeper?
because we're deferring that payment. That's one of the payments we're deferring to 7/125.
Okay,
It's a lease.
okay. So effectively, we just pushed those 7 payments out a
You
year.
did. You did.
So one of my questions is, I don't know where I'm at for next year, but I need to, think about trying to put some money in the capital for the grader. I don't have anything.
There's nothing in this CIP for that, and like we discussed, Joe, I think that's a discussion for next year, to see where that fits in the CIP. And really evaluating, do we need a grader, or is it more cost-effective for us to lease a grader at the time we need it? But that's a conversation that needs to be laid out based on how much time the grader is used. I mean, just recently, we rented a grader for $11,000 and took care of the roads this fall.
Yeah, I mean, but we also had to, that's because the grader went down, but
Right.
we used it up until that, the grader up until then, so, yeah. We can talk about it.
But I think that's a conversation for next year to figure out where that's going to fit and what is the urgency of getting that piece of equipment based on that evaluation.
I also noticed that we didn't put anywhere in here the crushed gravel. We used to, there's nothing in there at all. And
You have 25,000 from this year. Are you going to be crushing this year?
yeah, but I don't know what it's gonna cost me yet, so I know everything's gone up, so I didn't see it in there, so that's why I asked.
You're right. So you have 25,000 this year that's still sitting there waiting to be used.
Okay.
Okay.
Because we normally add to that every year, but, so that's it, all I have is the 25.
Yep.
Okay.
The other items for highway are on page 5 of the CIP plan. Right now, we're still asking for $250,000, an additional $250 for the downtown drainage project. Not sure where the soil testing is going to go at this time. We will be starting up, the Highland Street project has already started, as far as their surveying and review, and we picked our engineer. We believe that we need at least another $40,000 to offset that. And then the two roads that were considered for this year are New Hebron, with another $100,000 going against that road, and starting a capital reserve for Emerson Street for $125. And then, of course, the sidewalks all the way down at the bottom.
And when you look at the roads and the streets that are highlighted here, those are all part of the Lakes Region Planning Commission road surface management study. And again, with the culverts that are identified, again, part of that project as well.
Why have we put cemetery tree work historically? So we had money here on line 703 in the capital and land improvements. This time it's over in cemetery budget.
It isn't a, when we initially put this together, it wasn't considered as something that was needed. And then after the trustees met, they asked for that to be put back in at 10,000. And we put that in their operating budget instead of the outlay. 'Cause it sounds like it's not gonna be just a one-year expense.
Okay. Any other questions for highway on any of this?
I have none.
I have none either. Looks good. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
On-
I'll let you know if anything changes. It won't be until January 8th that they probably finalize the budget, we'll see.
Correct.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, January 8th. All right, library.
We have Rebecca and Becky. Rebecca and Rebecca.
Sure. That way you have
Close as you dare.
that way you have a microphone in case we have questions.
Oh, why not? Thank you.
Either see you guys or see my screen.
No.
Okay,
I'm happy.
We're nothing to look at, so go with your screen.
So Zach, with the library budget, I have been through the budget with the Pease Public Library trustees, as well as Ann and I met with Rebecca, as well as the budget committee. We visited Rebecca at the library and met with her. So after those 3 meetings, this is where we have ended up with the library budget.
What page is that, Scott?
It's on page 11,
11,
bottom of the page.
line 620. Like overall, we're up about $12,000, which again is right in that 2% range. So not setting off any red flags immediately out of the gate, which is good.
Are your trustees pleased with this budget?
Yeah, they are.
I know a couple that are on the budget, of the team, so.
Anything significant that you want to call out that's a change in this, or a concern or opportunity?
They are taking a part-timer, or a full-timer. For the most part, the increases are around 3. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. We've had a long-time part-time person who is moving into a full-time position, and we've had a seasonal person who's moving into or she is in a permanent part-time position now. So that's why the regular wages versus a part-time has changed a little bit there.
Okay.
The ratio.
Yep.
Sorry, what is the special part-time library? Is that the part-time person you're speaking of?
What is the position, or?
Yeah, what is special part-time? Is that the position you were just speaking of?
Yes, so that would be the seasonal.
Gotcha, okay, thank you. And what's seasonal, during the summer, or?
Yes, we had someone who was working about 14 weeks a year, I believe. So she would work during the summer and also around the winter holiday time.
Gotcha, thank you.
You're welcome.
Some of the other increases are incremental inflation costs with regards to books and supplies.
Right, such as office supplies. They're just expensive, and that covers all of the materials we use to cover our books, the labels, just everything.
And the grounds maintenance line is up. Is there some sort of project or something going on, or is that?
No, it's just that we had overspent the
Oh,
past
okay.
couple of fiscal years, I believe, and it's just with the winter and the plowing and the sanding and everything that comes from
Costs had
that.
caught up to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and part of that discussion, and Ted and I have talked about this, is really getting, I haven't had time yet, but getting our hands around the building and grounds and some coordinated efforts on how we mow and plow and shovel and do those types of things, because there's a lot of money spent now that doesn't need to be spent if we can coordinate those efforts between the departments we have.
Makes sense.
That's one thing I'll be tackling.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you probably have a little bit more space. You're not just learning everything this year. You can kind of pay attention to what's happening over the winter and make some recommendations for next year.
I mean, like the stairway down behind Meredith Village Savings Bank, and just some of the other contracted services that we're paying are outrageous amounts of money in my eyes, that if we coordinate our efforts between the town departments, we can see a genuine savings on those things.
Great. Any questions for library?
Did you talk to her about money not going into capital reserve?
Yep. Yeah, we talked about that at the Pease Public Library.
Do you have anything in
Yeah, I was just going to say, capital reserve projects, are there any going on in the library?
Not for the 24-25 year. I anticipate that there's going to be some work done the year after that on the HVAC system with some mini splits, and we'll see what else.
Do we have
About
that?
that with the trustees for 25, 26.
Yes.
Yep.
Do we
One
have?
thing that is getting done at the library is Rebecca is working on bids for carpeting in the children's room, which we'll hopefully have soon, and the purchase order will come in front of you to get that carpeting.
And that's all in this year's budget?
That is
Yeah.
correct.
Yes.
Good. You mentioned the HVAC, but I don't see it in the capital improvement.
No, I was referring to something further down the line. I got a quote to make a repair recently that does not have to be done immediately, and I didn't get it soon enough to go into this year's capital improvement projects. It was
Okay.
just, yeah, so that
Capital
would be
improvement
later.
plan, we want to make sure that we're getting anything into that plan that's going to be in the next 6 years.
Okay.
So we'll just want to make sure that that plan gets updated with, even if it's forecast numbers, that they don't have to, especially as the further out they are, they're just kind of placeholders that say, we know this expense is coming down the line and we should make sure we're planning for it.
Zach,
Okay.
there is it says Arcadia,
Yeah, I see Arcadia
Okay.
HVAC, but there's no,
30,000 is what the estimated cost was.
yeah, but it wasn't put in a year, so it's kind of implied that it's 7+ years out.
Okay.
I thought that says 2025.
It says 2025, but then it's not in a 2025 cell. Like if you go over to the right, 2025 would be the one after the yellow column.
Oh, okay.
See what I
There
mean?
was a thought that the HVAC system was going to have to be replaced entirely, and I spoke with people several months ago, and they did not want to replace the system.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that's why
So
that
maybe less.
was moved out, and a new repair will happen, and I will update.
Good. Things look good at the library. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thanks.
I think we're good. Anne, you want to update us on any of the changes that are in front of us?
So as you're looking at your large sheet, looking at, like on page 1, the blue section,
Yep.
the board had asked to take the PBTV out of the selectmen's and put it into its own line. So we did that. And you'll see right below that, it is now in its own lines. The reason that there's zeros on column A through D is because when people are comparing budget year to budget year, they want to see the exact numbers. So if I take it out of here and move it down here, it's
You're
gonna really
confused.
cause some confusion, so,
No argument there.
okay.
The Lucas device. You want to talk about that?
I'll get there.
Can I ask why we moved PBTV out? I wasn't part of that conversation.
So last time when we met, we called Dan in to talk through all the PBTV stuff. We have the station manager position. We have someone who's sort of managing that work and has their own expenses, and was like, for this to be mixed in with the kind of executive select board town manager section, just probably when it was $50,000 or less, it made a lot of sense. But now that budget has grown and there's more of an operation there, we've got a couple of part-time people, or we will have a couple of part-time people. It felt to the board at that time that it made sense to just, if we can, let's isolate PBTV and we can kind of control that a little bit more reasonably.
Gotcha, makes sense, thanks, Seth.
And the offsetting revenue also, you're able to look at that individually.
Absolutely, yep. So we can look, when we send them off they sign a contract with Ashland to record meetings or any of those kinds of things. It's so much easier to look at offsetting revenue that way. And there is a rumor or a proposed legislature that there's going to be more requirements on recorded.
There's a rumor.
That's what we heard.
25.
Yeah, at which point having PBTV isolated makes it even easier for us to then say to surrounding towns, hey, we can provide a service for you. This is how much it'll cost.
Agreed.
So the next change was on page 3, line 122. Taking the planning and development director down from the 81 to the 61,557, and we adjusted the benefits associated with that.
Okay.
If I missed something, somebody please holler.
Far more likely to know if you missed something than we did.
Yeah, on page 6, we talked about the Ambulance new, which, we took out the Lucas CPR device and put that in capital. So that is $22,078, I believe it was.
Yeah, you'll find that on page 1 of the CIP, under the fire department, on the first page.
So that was,
That 22 was added to CIP.
it's added to the CIP and taken out of this budget, yes. On page 10, you had requested, line 555, you had requested why the increase more significant for the welfare officer. She was only, the individual was only budgeted for 10 hours. We have found that we need her for a couple more hours a week, so we added a couple hours, and I had forgotten that when I talked to you.
Gotcha.
No bigger increase than anyone else, so 3%. So if you go to page 13, line 713, you can see that we have put in the ambulance Lucas CPR device, $22,078. And then if you go down to 723, line 723, sorry. I did change the name of that from dump truck to one-ton plow purchase, and that is a purchase and not a lease. We took out the lease payments for the ones below. The blower is the one that we took out completely,
And the recreation van.
and the recreational van. We took that as well out. And then we go on to capital reserves. Is on the last page.
Sorry, I'm just trying to keep up.
Sorry.
Why did we change the plow truck from lease to purchase?
Can't get a lease.
Just because we can't?
We can't,
For a one
that's
ton.
right, for a
Correct.
one-ton. We
Okay.
can for a large truck, we can't for the one-ton.
Okay, so it's too, they just don't offer leases on
Right, in the
trucks that big.
right, in the six-wheel dump truck, we will have a lease payment for, but deferred to 7/125.
Thank you.
So when we look at the transfer to capital reserves, line 743, the highway storage building for Hitchner's, the department had originally requested money. Scott had taken it out, so we just took it out completely, out of the department head and the town manager. We took out the dispatch equipment reserve. We left in the Conservation Commission capital reserve. Town reval, we have increased that a little from the original reports because of the prices that we see coming in for the updated software that we need for the assessing. We do have some money in capital reserve right now. We updated that for that purpose. We took out the building, fire, and police, both repair replacement capital reserves. And we took out the money that we were gonna put aside for the library building maintenance capital reserve.
We didn't end up talking about that with the library folks. That's okay with them?
Scott had already talked to them.
Okay, we're
Yep.
good.
Yep.
That was part of my discussion with the library trustees back in November.
So when you look at the big yellow box at the bottom, you see department head request. What I did is I took last year's, took the bond out. They are down $689,716. After Scott's review, Scott is recommending an additional increase total of $724,842, which is about $1 on the tax rate. That's the gross appropriation. If our revenues come in better, yay, lucky us, you know? We're hoping.
I would say at a minimum, it would be $1, but I believe it will be more, based on revenues.
Projections look to be that now.
And potentially growth in the bottom line.
Yep.
And we still have on the 18th, we will need to meet on the 18th
Sorry, I tried to get you guys out of that meeting.
because we still have recreation parks in the town clerk's office.
Yep.
And then that will wrap it up on, excuse me, that will wrap it up on the 18th.
You know what time that's gonna be?
That meeting is at 1:30 to 3:30, I believe.
Zoom in from South Carolina.
Absolutely. We'd love to see the grandchildren.
My 4-year-old grandson might have some questions.
But that's okay.
It actually starts at 1 o'clock, and we don't have a selectmen's meeting that night, so it's 1 to 2, 2 o'clock being the town clerk. So 2:30, 1 to 2:30. For the final meeting on January 8th.
And those three budgets on the 18th should be pretty quick. They're
Quick.
pretty straightforward.
We'll ask them all to be here at the same time,
Yep.
just in case we can get in and out.
All right. Sounds good to me. Shorter meetings are better.
Especially around the holidays.
And I know I've asked you this question before. I'm going to ask you it again
Denied.
because I'm just still trying to get my head to fully grasp it so that I can explain it. So I'm comparing the yellow bottom line, yellow box versus the green box.
Yep.
And I know we're trying to compare apples to apples here, and that's why the kind of the bond is the
Took
way
it
that
out.
it's being represented.
Correct?
In the, or so I'm trying to figure out, so line 759 in this subtracts out that 1.8 million,
Yes.
and then we're just adding it back in to
To get
zero
the
that
total
out.
budget, yes, that's what I did.
And is that because we still have to pay that 1.8 million?
That is an expense that we don't have this coming year, so you really shouldn't be putting that in your budget. That was an expense over multi-years. It's like a 10-year bond.
Right, okay. So was it not part of the budget last year?
Out of the capital.
It was part of the budget, however, we had a complete offsetting revenue for it, Zach.
Okay,
The only part that was actually affect the tax rate would be the bond payment itself.
and the bond payment itself is represented
It
up
is,
in 674 debt
Debt
service?
Service, that's right.
Okay,
And that payment's $180,000 a year.
Plus interest, yep.
Yeah, plus interest.
so we're adding that back in to understand the decrease. But in terms of what we're gonna raise and appropriate, it's actually this 12 million number?
It's going to be the 12,508,155 if that's what the board chooses, yes.
Okay.
That'll be the number that will be on the bottom line of your budget report.
Okay, and the budget report for last year, will the bottom line show 15?
For 23, 24, yes, it'll show 15.
Okay, so I'm just thinking, to the taxpayer, it's gonna look like we cut,
2.5
million?
And you didn't.
we didn't really, because,
And that's what this is trying to show you. This is more, I don't want anyone to think, geez, you're cutting 2.4, we're gonna pass everything. You know,
Right.
with the town manager, we cut 2.5, you're gonna pass everything. Why wouldn't you pass everything? That isn't realistic.
it's not realistic, because we had 1.8 million last year, but it was completely offset by, because that was money we raised through a bond.
Correct.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I thought it was more fair
I
to see
appreciate-
as much
yes.
information as you could.
I appreciate it. Just wanted to make sure I had it all square. I think I've got it now.
Okay.
Thank
Very
you
well done.
for being patient with me.
That's okay.
I did have a question too, Ann. In the yellow at the bottom, it says actual increase in
Oh, I
parentheses.
should say decrease, sorry, I didn't change the name.
I should say decrease.
Okay, I was like, wait a minute, I
No, no, no,
thought
no,
the
no.
parentheses meant you're at a deficit
They
there.
were at a increase at one point, so I will change that word.
No, I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
It's like, wait a minute, this isn't adding up here.
And Zach, when you're saying what you'll see on the budget comparison, you will actually see, you won't see the 15,634,131, which is in column D. You're going to see the 15,032,997. That is a number that we'll be comparing year to year to, okay?
Yeah, because of the encumbrances.
Right, because of the encumbrances. We have to take those out.
Which in theory will happen again. Usually we have encumbrances every year.
Right?
But we won't know what those encumbrances are until well after town meeting. We won't know until June.
We can't count
June.
on them right now.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
We just don't have them. I think we got through the entire selectmen's executive and all the other departments. The only one thing that we hadn't talked about yet is your capital, not capital, your nonprofits.
Oh,
And you have two members of the nonprofit committee right here. If you wanted to discuss them, before Mike had left, so we weren't able to talk about them. We've got a few
that's right.
minutes.
Mike had
What
to.
line are they on?
Um,
560.
what
Well,
line did you-
technically, they're actually above that too. 549, health agencies, those are not same kind of deal.
61.
And then 560.
Page 10.
Page 10, sorry, yes.
So
That's the rough.
starting with line 550 is the first nonprofit. Recommendation right now, you had given them 15.5 this year. They had requested 23, and the nonprofit committee, along with the town manager, asked for 20.
Did they give reason for that extra request?
Well, I believe that with costs going up and everything, and our focus to be mostly on, the older folks and the younger folks, we felt that the area they have to cover and the needs that they have, that we bump them up a little bit more to help them.
The other thing, Zach, the increase in activity that they've had was another reason for the increase.
Did they give
Yeah,
numbers on that?
Yeah, big picture, we were looking at about $109,000 worth of requests from all these agencies. And last year, we spent $74,000, and our proposal this year for the entire group is $77,400. So we sort of went through it, and as Mike said, we focused on those agencies that really have a hard time raising money on their own. So the Red Cross, who raises money nationally, is not our focus. We want to contribute, so we get some of the benefit, but they're certainly not going to balance their budget on the town of Plymouth's back. And so we went through and we focused on those areas where they were serving our community. Pemmy Baker Home Health, Transport Central, the Youth Center, Grafton County Senior Citizens, those things that people see every day. That was really our focus. All of the agencies documented their expenses very, very well. I will tell you, when we saw agencies that had salaries in the six figures, we just sort of said, okay, I'm not begrudging anybody any salary, but we just said, what do we put in this column? When you look at those agencies that use volunteers, that's a whole nother story.
So
Kinda
I
hard
can get a
to-
six-figure salary and that would be okay?
I don't think it was on your page.
Your page, but there was 3 or 4 of them that are
Really?
in the 6 digits, which
Yeah.
Sure.
makes it very hard to swallow of what is the intent and purpose of that organization.
Yeah, and again, we worked with Scott in terms of the amount of non-taxable land that they inhabit in the town of Plymouth is part of that balance also. So if they're in a building that's worth $500,000 and we're deriving no real estate payment from it, the board may negotiate a payment in lieu of taxes. But we sort of looked at that and said, okay, it's a pretty good gift in and of itself. So, shouldn't say gift, it is what it is.
Given the priority of youth and the older folks, what's the reason for the reduction on Katie?
On which one?
Katie.
Katie has a number of grants, statewide, countywide, and I know that they have a very unique relationship with Pemmy Baker Regional School District. And so there's an awful lot of town of Plymouth money that comes from different quarters towards Katie.
Funneled into Katie.
Yeah.
Okay. So we feel comfortable reducing.
I'm very
payment there.
comfortable.
And I've met with
Yeah.
Deb
Yeah.
on that and had that conversation.
And they do a really nice job. Probably many of us donate to Katie. They do a really nice job fundraising at the grassroots level.
Yep.
You'll see that there is a new organization that came in. We really didn't have
Lakes Region Visiting
much
Nurse Association.
information.
Well, we looked at them, and they gave us some pretty good information. Their service area clearly is Meredith, Molten Borough, and Center Harbor. We're over the hill and hard to get to. And they would be duplicating services that are here, we think, with Pemmy Baker.
Community Health.
Yeah, so, they seem to be doing quite well with those 3 communities.
And the one thing that I did just to, because I looked into that a little further, because my mother-in-law was in Forest View. And they do provide services to folks from Plymouth that are in those type of facilities, but they're very few and far between. Just like we provide services up here from those that are in those towns as well.
So we found out, I think either last year or the year before, regarding budget talks in also different towns like Bristol. I go to Bristol's, dog and pony shows. And apparently there is no longer a, demarcation of like service areas. And so different, nursing associations can visit different areas based on just be, put in a bill, so I think that's a problem. But it's going on now, and in fact, I was up in Woodstock doing a dog and pony last week, and they had a nursing association that was not involved at all in Woodstock, and they just kind of wrote them off. So it's kind of rough to hold down exactly what they do for us. Anyway. I was doing a dog and pony for Transport Central, not the town of Plymouth.
You're not up there holding a can.
That was the only other area, wasn't it?
That was
We
the
hadn't
only
covered.
area that we have not gotten to besides the 3 people who are gonna come see us.
But it looks like overall for nonprofits, we're up about 3,500.
Yes.
Correct. And that was, at least my understanding in our conversation, that was based on increased activity with those organizations.
Yes. Our intent was to bring that number down even further, but in good faith, we couldn't do it.
So when you find out what town is from, do you actually ask for numbers? Do they give you that information very succinctly and, as opposed to a guess?
They do, Mary Ann. They send in reports. Scott and Ann send out information, and they fill in all the lines, and they give us very good information.
Gotcha.
And then they each submit a report for the annual town report as well, Mary Ann, with their activity.
Okay, great, thank you.
And Ann has prepared ridiculous forms that the nonprofits have to fill out, but
Just save it to your computer.
Whose deal is it?
They
Zach's.
they do yield us the information we really need. It's,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have no additional questions about nonprofits. What else? Anything else?
No, we do have a,
We have a non-public that we could go
Nonprofit?
into.
not public,
Oh.
sorry.
We have no Neil tonight?
I do not know.
Do you want to wait and do the non-public at the end, just in case he's here?
I think that would be my preference. Then Mary Ann will be here in person as well. So I think we,
Let me go home and change my ice cream sweatshirt.
well, I think we have a 25-minute recess here.
You're gonna recess.
That should give you time.
All right.
And I want to order one of those pies.
Ah,
Delivered
we have a
today.
call in the office on the.
Oh, come on.
What would you like,
I want the peppermint one that you talked about.
You got it.
Glad we got all that business done.
We'll have it at our next meeting.
What budget's that coming out of?
Well, that was good. We got-
Definitely nonprofit, I don't make any money.
All right.
Not gonna change the reports for next meeting, I promise. Okay. So bring that one back, that's dated 12/5.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Change the word to decrease.
Thank you, Mike and Mark. Appreciate it.
It's the only chance you're going to get.
Next week.
hey, Mark? Yeah. So I know you're like a
Mary Ann's
trustee.
bringing ice.